Welcome to Inside View. I'm your host, Joel Metzger, and joining me on this show is Dave Jeffords, who is the president of the Economic Development Agency for Calaveras County, and Darrell Slocum, who is the marketing director for Central Sierra Connect. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Nice to have you on the show. Darrell, you have been a guest a couple times, but Dave, this is your first time, so welcome especially to you. Now, if you can just update our viewers real quick, what's your history here? Have you been a long-time resident, or are you a recent transplant?
I am a recent transplant, 13 months. Came up with my career in Silicon Valley, high-tech manufacturing.
All right. Well, welcome to the county. Glad to have you here. And Darrell, before we get into some things you've done, I wanted to just give people an idea of what the Economic Development Company is, so we can let them know that if they want to get involved in Calaveras County's future, this is a good way. So would you go over that just real quick for us?
Yeah, the mission of the Economic Development Company is to first help businesses that are existing now, to help them to flourish and thrive, to retain them, and then secondly, to help them expand, and then lastly, to go after enterprises that are outside the county and get them to bring jobs here into this county.
Okay, and if people wanted to find out more, what are some ways they could do that?
There is a website called Calaveras County Economic Development Company. There's a Facebook page. We call it Calaveras Life. There's a Twitter account, also Calaveras Life. So those are three different ways, and I think my telephone number is on the screen in there. They can call too.
Great, okay.
Happy to talk to them.
Okay, and Darrell, you really are specializing in broadband with your position, and that's something that you know a lot about. We'll go into that a little further. But before we get there, I just wanted you to give viewers who may not have been introduced to you a little history of some things that you've been involved in over the years and how long you've been in this area.
Well, I actually grew up in Tuolumne County and made the long journey over to Calaveras County back in 2000. So I've been here for about 14 years now. But I spent a long time with Golden State Cellular as a marketing director, and so that was kind of my foray into the telecommunications world. But I have a marketing background, marketing and sales. Since leaving Golden State, I've been working for Central Sierra Connect in the capacity of outreach coordinator, marketing, basically just trying to be an evangelist for broadband and the importance of broadband connectivity. And it pairs nicely with my background and what I've done in the past. And I've been involved in a variety of things, including serving on different boards and committees, et cetera, and just giving back to this community that is such a great community, but hindered in so many ways as far as it pertaining to economic development and other ventures that are more difficult than they are in larger metropolitan areas.
What motivates you to spend so much time, looking out for the best interest of the people here and the businesses here?
Well, I guess the short answer would be somebody needs to do it. But for me personally, I just get a lot of joy out of it. There is feeling the need, because again, there's just a lot of things that need to be done. And we have so many people here who are working very hard at their business or their job. And as you know, volunteerism is huge here. I mean, our economy would be staggered if we ever lost our volunteers who give so fully to so many ventures, nonprofit and otherwise. And so for me, it's a chance to hopefully pair some of my skills and ability in matching that need, and then finding ways to benefit the community. And I really get a lot of enjoyment out of doing that.
Speaking of volunteerism, I don't believe the EDC members get any kind of compensation at this point. Is that right?
Just the personal satisfaction from doing the job.
Okay, so as Darrell noted, we really do rely on volunteers, and this is one of those organizations that does. And if you could take us back to the beginning, when did this agency first get started?
It goes back to 1983. The papers were first filed and it's gone through, I don't know how many incarnations since then. Probably 3 or 4 that I've heard. I've heard the oral history of the organization. The last one was to produce the Calaveras County profile that was produced, highlighting all the 9 communities of the area. And then it joined the chamber for a little bit, and that wasn't a good fit. And so we are independent of the Calaveras County Chamber of Commerce now, and working, for to bring some education, and working with Darrell on the broadband. That's one of the, that's such a economic driver these days. If you don't have good broadband, you can't participate in our society in any way, shape, or form.
Before we get into some of those details, just to give people a little more background, you said you came from Silicon Valley.
Yes.
And you were into what exactly down there?
I started in semiconductor manufacturing, and then transitioned into planning factories for semiconductors. And then, like most people, I moved on to other things. Like I was in 2 software startups, and then I was in electronic manufacturing services, and then I was in IT equipment evaluation, which was the fun part because you got to do a drop test where you
You actually got to do the drop test?
That was my big. That's the whole reason I did it. It's just you have to hold it up a yard and drop it, and then it has to survive after that, and it has to go through a bunch of measures. So that was a cool part, and you get to overheat things too. So it's
okay. What appeals to you specifically about that line of work?
The safety part.
Well, just in general, it sounds like you really did a lot of tech-related things.
Oh yeah, that's all I did.
Some pioneering things as well.
Well, you kind of hit on it there. Pioneering. It's fun to be on the cutting edge of stuff. I like new stuff. I don't want to go back and do the old stuff. And so you're always. One of the companies that I worked with was a custom chip manufacturer, VLSI Technology. So you're always prototyping. We had Apple as a customer at the time, always running their latest prototype. You get to learn what's coming 6 months down the line. You're intimately involved with the technology that's shaping our lives. So it's kind of sexy and it's fun.
All right.
And you can get stuck too.
Oh, that's always good.
Yeah. So there's a lot of reasons.
What led you to come up here recently?
My wife, she was with Dignity Health, has been for a long time, and she was doing working in administration there in San Francisco. Decided she wanted to get back, to her core, which is being a nurse. And Mark Twain had the opening for the vice president of nursing up here. And we had never heard of Calaveras outside of Mark Twain. We said, we have another adventure in us, so let's move up here. So we moved up here February 15th of 2013.
Where'd you settle down in the county?
We're a mile outside of Murphy's off Sheep Ranch.
Oh, beautiful country.
It's outstanding. We love it. We just sold our house down in Silicon Valley. We decided to heck with it. We're looking for property up here. If anybody knows any property, I'll be
Okay, great.
happy
Certainly.
to look at it.
So have you ever been involved in anything like a development company for the economy, anything like that?
No, I have a lot of nonprofit experience, which is what it is. It's a lot of using my background in Silicon Valley's project management skills, and it's running projects. We're running broadband project and the other things. I just run them like a project. So I have a lot of skills in that regard, which is people management, time management, task management, all of that kind of stuff I've been doing for a long time.
And did you kind of seek out this opportunity, or was it presented to you as something you might be interested in?
I don't sit on the sidelines. I started looking when I came up here, and I was just somebody who said, hey, there's a chamber meeting happening down at the Murphy's Hotel. So I just go and start meeting people, shaking hands, and you run into this person, that person, and one thing leads to another, and pretty soon here I am a year later.
Well, as you said, it seems like this development agency has kind of gone up and down and had support and then lost support and many iterations. Mm-hmm. So what's going to make this time different?
The underpinnings of it, just running it like a company, running it like a business, running it like a project, and also you got to listen, right? I think I'm a pretty good listener. We're talking to a lot of people. What does the community want? We're not here to tell the community what they're supposed to do. We're here to listen and then to help their desires, objectives be realized. And so if we've got the support from the community, the suggestions come from the community, and then we work hard to keep listening, which is what you got to do, because everything's a moving target, right? And pay attention to what people want, then we'll have the best chance. No guarantees, but we'll have a good chance.
Would you mind if I comment on that? Because
Please.
Dave's modest. He's leaving out a very significant component, and I would argue one of the reasons that it hasn't been successful in the past. As with any venture, you need a catalyst. And we're fortunate to have Dave in this role because we have somebody at the helm who's driving it day in and day out. And the fact that he's doing it as a volunteer doesn't change his passion for the position. And that's really what's making the difference. And it's what made the difference in Tuolumne County when they formed the JPA and were able to hire Larry Cope as their Economic Development Director. But here, we weren't able to put together that funding, but we were able to land Dave, and he's made a lot of inroads and a lot of progress towards having a much more efficient and effective economic development company.
And is it true that Larry has been willing to help out in the process of building this over
Larry's
here?
a very generous individual, and he and Dave and the other members of the EDC have had numerous conversations.
We're scheduled with him for 2-hour meetings. We've already had 2. We have 2 more. I'm going to schedule 2 or 3 more. The man, he bent over backwards. I can't. He's the real mentor. I just kind of find an expert. That's one of my other tactics. Find an expert you trust, vet them, be sure they're the right expert, and then you just turn it over to them and say, okay, tell me what to do.
Absolutely.
And then we just follow instructions. I'm good at following instructions. Once I'm sure it's the right guy and the right instructions, which I check with other people like Darrell and stuff, and okay, he's cool. All right, so now we can move ahead with.
Well, build a framework for me for who is becoming involved and is already involved in this. Who are some people that I might recognize and others might recognize?
I might defer to Darrell on that one, since he's been doing it longer, and I can chime in with our new guys.
Yeah, well, I think having the county involvement, Cliff Edson has been, Supervisor Edson has been very involved. I know Marita Callaway has been involved in the process. So you've got that component. And then there are numerous other individuals who are donating their time as well.
I thought you were talking about the broadband aspect.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Yeah, well, and he's Maria Cliff's at every meeting. We've got Bob Dean from CCWD. We've got Marty Crane is there. We've got Dave Haley. We've got this Sandy Murdoch. She just joined us today. We got Bob Doughton, who did GABA.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Bob is a big supporter. He just came back to us. He was off doing an independent thing there, for-profit thing, and now he's back with us, and he's a real driving force, developing things.
Maurice Bennett.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Maurice Bennett, and I'm leaving people out. I'm trying
Zero
to think
McDaniel.
Zero McDaniel. Yeah. We've got about 40 people now that are showing up, and.
Oh, that's fantastic. So this is really building momentum. And once again, anyone else who hears this wants to get involved. Is it pretty much open, or?
Yeah, it's absolutely. Yeah, we want ideas. That's what I was telling them today. It's not, when we run this meeting, it's not my meeting. It's our meeting, and I'm just the guy who makes the agenda. And however you want to shape it, we need the ideas. Like so we need to be innovative here. We got to get outside the box if we're going to succeed. We can't just be doing business as usual, or we're going to get what we got, which is. No broadband. Or not good broadband coverage. I shouldn't say that. That's not true.
And speaking of that, back to your mission, which is kind of economic vitality. Is that pretty much if you boil it down, that's what
That's why
we're
the economic development companies involved. Yes, yeah.
And one of the main priority right now, which you've identified, has been broadband, and that's why Darrell has been someone that you've been in close communication with, along with your other expertise. But Darrell, if you could talk a little bit about what's been going on with broadband and the importance of it for this county in particular?
Well, first I want to clarify, and Dave just corrected himself. There's a danger in using absolutes, and so you'll often hear. And when I was with Golden State, I would often hear there's no cell coverage, and so now it's just a different mantra. Yeah. There's no broadband, and that's not true. It's more a case of the haves and have-nots, where there are some areas where we have very vibrant broadband connections. Both from national providers and local providers, but we have some significant gaps that where coverage is inadequate. Many people are relying on satellite providers, which does not meet the definition of broadband. And so what we're trying to do is find a way to fill in those gaps and improve the overall infrastructure of our county, because the other thing people need to realize is that the internet revolution, if you want to call it that, or evolution, it's not over. As recently as 1 or 2 years ago, many of us were not using streaming video. We didn't have a Netflix subscription, etc. So you can imagine what happened to our bandwidth, in other words, our internet usage, as more and more people started utilizing those kinds of services. Well, we're going to continue to use that as it pertains to things like smart housing and appliances. No one can say precisely what the solution will be to our water woes, but there's a large possibility, a high likelihood that technology will be a component of that, where now you might leave for work one day on one of those rare spring days when we get rain, unexpected, and you've got your sprinkler scheduled to come on at home, and you can't run home to turn it off. At some point in the not too distant future, you'll be able to dial in via internet and turn those sprinklers off. Or another thing that's very prominent up here is the second homeowners who have a pipe burst in the winter. And I don't want to take any business away from my friends who own carpet cleaning or cleaning businesses, but that's a huge business up here. What you don't think about is how much water is lost in a process like that. So to have an alarm go off at your home in the Bay Area or wherever you live, indicating that that's happened, or simply being able to shut the valve off remotely after you leave the house, those are the kind of things that are going to add to our need for broadband, as does every time somebody adds a device. I mean, if you think about it, you know, it wasn't too long ago when you had a desktop, and then you had a laptop, and now you have a tablet, and now you've added a smartphone, and then your kids have Wi-Fi capable devices. All of that is dividing up that broadband pie that's coming into your house, and ultimately it divides up the pie that's coming into our region. So what we need is more pipelines and bigger pipelines.
And the company that you work for is called what again?
It's a nonprofit called Central Sierra Connect, which is a program of ATCA. It's one of the ATCA programs.
And this is a grant funded?
Yes, it is. It's part of the CASF grant, which is basically funded by that little tax, that nuisance tax that you pay on your cell phone bill, that adds up to be a significant amount of money.
Okay. And so you're doing marketing and outreach for them, and are you finding that people are really kind of latching onto the idea of the importance of broadband, or are you finding some resistance?
Yes and no. I mean, as is often the case, we have some late adopters in our area. So I'm often quoting Steve Jobs and saying that, you know, we've got to prepare the product for people before they even know they need it. We have a lot of people up here who maybe, unlike Dave, they might have retired from a non-technical job. So they may be in their early mid-50s, late 50s. They might not have ever used a computer before. So we don't just do outreach for broadband. One of our lines is bringing broadband to the people and people to broadband, because part of what we're trying to do is help people who've not been exposed to the internet and computers, and show them that it's the road to prosperity. It's your opportunity to educate yourself. It's your opportunity to find work, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a combination of those things. But as a result of that, there has been, and Dave's learned this since the EDC's become involved, there is an education process where you do have to explain to people, no, we do need better broadband infrastructure, including those who have it now, not realizing that not everybody in our area has it.
And that's a point I wanted you to touch on, is who does have it and doesn't right now? Is there kind of a basic, I mean, what towns do and don't?
No, it gets really, it can become very frustrating just identifying the areas of need. And so part of what we've been spending our time with is populating the CPUC, which is the California Public Utilities Commission, which is the regulating entity for Central Sierra Connect, their broadband map, which currently does not depict our area accurately. It shows more areas of coverage than actually exist.
And that's dangerous because we can't get funding unless we show an accurate map?
Funding and other things. It's in our best interest to have that map be accurate. And the way we do that is by driving our citizens, residents and businesses to the mapping site to populate it with their actual information, not what's stated on there, but what their actual internet program is at their location.
And is there an easy way for them to find that link?
There is. You can go to the Central Sierra Connect website, which is centralsierraconnect.org. You can go to the EDC website. And by the way, Dave, on your Facebook page, it's not searchable as, what do you call it, Calaveras Life?
Yeah.
You still need to enter Calaveras County Economic Development Company. That's the easiest way to find it.
We just bought some more names, so that'll be fixed here shortly.
Okay.
But you can also just do a Google search for CPUC, or California Public Utilities Commission broadband map, and that will bring it up in the search as well.
Sometimes on that site too, the instructions are not really straightforward, and I made a PowerPoint that's on our website that takes people screen by screen if they're not really tech savvy.
Yeah.
how to do this. It only takes about a minute and a half. It's pretty easy, but if you're not, haven't done a lot of it, some people have told me it is daunting for them to get through.
Yeah, and like you said, there are people of all levels of savvy with computers, so
Yes.
you certainly have to have information for all of them.
Mm-hmm.
There recently, or will soon be, a fiber line that is new that just came through Calaveras County, and it has endpoints at the Calaveras County Library in San Andreas, as well as the Office of Education in Angels Camp. And that's very exciting for this county in my mind. And I was hoping you could touch on what does this mean for the county once local ISPs could tap into this line?
Well, first, I'd like to explain what it is, because it's part of the ARRA funding, the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. About 9 telephone companies, including Volcano over in Amador County and Calaveras Telephone down in Copperopolis, went together, formed an organization that applied for a grant to provide fiber to an 18-county area, and it includes our 5 counties: Mariposa, Amador, Tuolumne, Mariposa, and Calaveras counties. And it is exactly what we would be lobbying for if we didn't have it. So, is a way to say that. They were awarded $46.6 million as a grant to build out that network, and it's in the process of being completed. As you mentioned, they're specifically tasked with creating the network, the infrastructure, and then delivering it to what are designated as anchor tenants. However, once that's done and once the infrastructure or the fiber is in the ground, then they will wholesale that bandwidth to local providers, who can then in turn take that and either pull the fiber to another location, which you can do, or turn it into connect it to a tower and create a wireless internet signal, or do a variety of things. So this is where it gets creative, and we have some very creative and innovative internet service providers here that are already doing these kinds of things, and this is only going to add to their ability to do that. Think of it in terms of, I often relate it to the water business, where if you have a pipe, that's a good start, but then there's got to be water in the pipe, and that's the second component. But then if the water in the pipe is running right by your location and there's no access, meaning there's no way to get it to your location, then you need an access point. And so what we're going to have is we're going to have the pipe, we're going to have the fiber in it, and then there will need to be access points created, and then rerouting that to the home or business in some fashion.
Why did the EDC latch on to this as its #1 priority?
It's fundamental to economic development in so many ways. Like I said, I think I like the way the UK looks at it. They call it the fourth utility. It's not an option anymore. It's like rural electrification. It's like back in this county in the 1850s when they had to bring water in. It's the grease that turns the economy. And it's obviously not the whole thing now, but it's a big part of it. There's so many examples. Very few employers put want ads in the papers these days. Kids don't read the papers. They're on Facebook. They're on Monster.com. They're on the aggregators, Simply Hired and Indeed. I talked to a gentleman at the Cliffs Valley Springs Town Fair town meeting that was trying to take online courses to improve himself, and he's only got satellite connectivity, and just talking about waiting for responses. It was very frustrating. I've been collecting stories that we'll begin to soon publish of people's problems. Guy didn't want his name used, but he lives in Mountain Ranch, has a satellite hookup. He homeschools his children, has a consulting business. His wife needs the internet for her business, and they have a live-in who helps homeschool the children. And he said, I can't tell you how many times he's had to go to town to get another internet hookup because they've got so many devices tapping into this fixed pipe at his house on the satellite. And then if he goes over, the charges are enormous on satellite if you go over that. Keeping seniors in their home, that's a huge thing. There's so many sensors, blood pressure, blood sugar. They've got sensors to see if the senior's upright, if they're walking right, if they're taking their medication. You can have your webcam and you can look and, you can teleconference, you can transmit this information to your doctor. I mean, all of the companies needed. One of the guys that's on our board, he has his company. He talks about having to sit. He's got a customer on the phone, and he brings up the corporate. They have a central database, and he's bringing up the costing data and stuff. And they're trying to talk to somebody on the phone, and they're having to make polite conversation while they're waiting for the information to roll up. So it hurts the business if you can't run your credit card. I mean, I could take up the next half an hour with things that go on, and kids just doing their homework. People don't have a hookup. Yeah, I've heard stories. We got to go to Starbucks. People down in the Wallace area, I've talked to a couple of individuals have dial-up.
Oh my!
I mean, that's like last century, right? I mean, that's so old. But then the kids, you end up having to go to town or Starbucks somewhere where there's a hotspot, and then the kid, you got all a child down there, and they do their. I mean, it just goes on and on.
Darrell, what could it do for economic development specifically, looking toward the future, to have this asset?
Well, Dave just did a great job of outlining how it impacts basically everything. But any company that's considering relocation to the area, for instance, it's going to be one of the initial questions on their list is the availability of broadband. Not just availability of broadband, but high bandwidth broadband capability. Because again, most of these individuals, and Dave knows this well, they're tech savvy. So they're not looking for a signal that's going to accommodate their needs right now. They're going to want something that's going to allow them to grow in the future. The expansion of existing businesses is closely tied to that capability. The global aspects, the ability to do video conferencing, et cetera, et cetera. And don't forget just one of the basic requirements, which is we need people to staff our businesses. And we in many ways, we lack that in our area. There's a lack of trained individuals to staff our businesses. And those type of educated people, when they consider areas to relocate in, they're looking for areas that have a good technical infrastructure, because they utilize tech so much. It's going to be one of the first things that they seek out.
So with this fiber in place, and then once local ISPs have hooked into it and start distributing it across the county to a wider range, this could be the beginning of a brighter economic future for the county. Is that fair?
Yes. I think people that maybe if they don't know about fiber, just one little fact that I was reading about this, very simple, is they've tested and no one has found its limits yet. Its capacity limits. It is at this point limitless in the amount of traffic that it can carry and conduct at super high rates of speed. And that's that's the reason, if you don't know about fiber, that's all you just need to know. It's just copper is limited. It's one width and it's going to carry so much, and when it's full, it's full. But fiber, it's limited at this point in time. The research has not found a capacity constraint for it.
Finally, once again, if people want to find out more, they can visit what website?
Calaveras County Economic Development Company.
Okay. Well, I appreciate both of you gentlemen taking the time to come on, and look forward to hearing an update in a year or two.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's been great.
And thank you for joining me on this edition of Inside View. I'm your host, Joel Metzger, and I hope you join me next time.